So this is a video to look at some more spreadsheet tools. So we're going to make a new sheet, blank spreadsheet, and then we are going to import some data from the desktop, which you can find in the drive, upload, and it will be employment Wales CSV. And we don't need to replace it, we'll just insert a new sheet, and then we get our data. I'm going to right click on this tab and duplicate it. I'm going to rename that as D, rename the original one as original. I'm going to take the place I got the data and put it in as a source. Oops, there we go. I'm going to go to view and I'm going to freeze the first row and make it a bit bigger. Make it bold, give this thing a title, employment rates, Wales. And I'm going to zoom a little bit so the thing's a bit bigger. And that's it. So there we go, there's our data. Now, the first thing is, you'll remember that if you select some figures like this, you get this calculator on the bottom right, which will give you, for example, the average. So we could select these two, or we could select all of these. But what you can also do is select one, and then use the command button, which on a Mac is the one just to the left of the spacebar, and you could then select this one as well. So now we've got these two, and they don't have to be single batches. And you might add, for example, these three, and this one, and one more. So that's how you select cells which will let you, which aren't in a bunch, and which will let you use a calculator. So that's a small point. Next issue we have here is that we have these areas, West Wales, valleys, East Wales, and then we have these these local authorities. And I would like them to be in two columns, which is really how they're supposed to be. So I'm going to click on this column, right click, and say insert column to the right. And then I'm going to select this column and go to data, split text to columns, which does what it says. It's going to split the text into several columns. And then it needs to know, well, do you want me to split it where I find a space, which I don't want, because then it would be West, and the next column would have Wales, blah, blah, blah. I want it to split where there's this underscore. So it offers to split things on commas or on semicolons, but it also has a custom function. So I'm going to put in an underscore, and then it will split along those. So now I have exactly what I wanted. I have the areas, and then I have the local authorities. Now, these are a bit cumbersome, so I'm going to make it year ending March 2021. 2, 3, 4, 5. So, the next thing we're going to look at is if we have a formula. So, for example, we might decide we want to know the average for Anglesey over this period. So we just write equals average, open the brackets, and then give it the argument as in the range. What's the stuff you want me to average? And there we go. And it will assume that this is what I want to do. If I'm happy with my formula, I could just say, yes, do that, please. But I'm going to say no, because I just want to look at it and see that it makes sense. Equals average C2 to G2. That's it. Average. And now that I'm happy with it, I'm going to double click on this little circle in the bottom right, and it will apply it to all the others. Now, if for some reason I want to paste this somewhere, I would just, in fact, let's take the entire column, and let's say I want to put it in this sheet here. and that's just Control C once I have this selected, and then I go here, Control V, and I have this problem because logically it's looking for some columns to the left where it did the sums, because what's actually in this column is not the figure 74.6, it's this, it's the formula. So if you move this, then it's going to get confused. So what we'll do is we'll take this, we'll copy it, and then instead of just pasting, we will go to Edit, not Paste, but Paste Special, and we will ask for values only. So just the numbers. And then we get the numbers. Slightly out of sync, out of whack. If you can get the little hand to appear, you can move the whole thing. But the little hand doesn't want to. There it is. Very useful. Okay. We'll do it again. Edit, paste special, values only. There we go. So there's nothing in this cell except the number. Right? There's no formulas. So that's extremely useful. So that's called paste special. The next thing we need to do is I would like to add some geographical codes to each of these rows. So each of these local authorities has a geographical code. And if we had codes attached to it, then it would be very simple for us to make maps with this. So we are going to introduce some more data. So we're going to import again. We're going to upload something called codes. Okay. Insert new sheet. And there are our codes. And so what do we have? We have the local authority in Welsh, and its geographical code. So we need, I'm going to park this over here and rename it as paste. We need to make a new column where we're going to want to put the code. And then we're going to use a formula, just like with average, but a bit more complicated, called a Vlookup, equals, that's V for vertical, because it's going to look things up vertically, equals Vlookup, which it suggested. So what are the arguments? What are the things we need to put into this? The first thing is, well, what do you want me to look up? So what I wanted to look up is Isle of Anglesey, so I'm just going to click on this cell. There we go, B2. Where do you want me to look? I want it to look... oh, hang on, I've done this backwards. This is completely the wrong place. Okay. Nice. Let's get out of here. This is the wrong sheet. This is where we want it, which also has all the places I'm looking for, which is why I got confused. So, insert column to the left. We're going to call it code. And equals Vlookup. What do we want to look up? Whatever's in here. Where do we want it to look? So we click on the sheet we're interested in, and it will follow us. You can see it's dragged that formula with us, and then we just select the area we want it to look in, and then we tell it, okay, if you find what we're looking for, which is Isle of Anglesey, I want you to go to the third column and bring back whatever's in that. And then we also put in an argument to say false, because it has a tendency to bring you back things even if it's extremely approximately close to what you're looking for, which we don't want. So there we go, equals Vlookup. C2 is the cell in our main sheet. This is the sheet with the codes. And 3 is the column that we want brought back, and then false, so it doesn't do anything approximate. And there we go. Right? There's the code that corresponds to Isle of Anglesey. Now, there's one thing that I've forgotten to do. So if we were to drag this as a formula, we would get the we get the code for Gwynedd. However, you can see here, it's now looking at A3 to C24. Where is that? So because we're moving down, it's decided to move this table down as well. And so now it's looking in here. Instead of looking from A2 to C23, it's looking from A3 to C24. This would probably work, but it's extremely unhelpful and dangerous sometimes. So let's adjust this. Let's get rid of Gwynedd. Let's go back to the original one and let's fix this reference A2 to C23, which you do by putting in dollar signs. So A $2, C $23. So we get the same thing, but this time when we drag it to Gwynedd, it hasn't adjusted the table. It's still looking in that section from A2 to C23. So now that that's working, we can just double click on that little circle in the bottom right, and it applies them. So now we have geographical codes for all of these areas through our Vlookup. So that's really useful. If you had, for example, a list of constituencies and you wanted to attach the sitting MP for each of them, then this is probably what you do. Now, and the last thing we're going to look at is a pivot table. So well, let's get rid of this column. So there's a certain number of things we can do here. We could sort, for example, by just by going up where the columns have their letters. We could, for this little drop-down arrow, we could sort by biggest to smallest for the most recent year, and we could see that the highest employment rate is in Flintshire. And we could jump to the bottom, or we could sort in the other direction, A to Z. And we could see that the lowest employment rate is here. Then I Gwent, Rhondda, Swansea. So that's interesting. Or we could filter. If we wanted to know, for example, what the average, if we wanted to compare the average employment rate in West Wales and East Wales, well, we could use the selection that I was speaking about at the very beginning, which is we could select a West Wales figure, then we could use the command button just to the left of the space bar, and we could add up all the West Wales. This is tedious and also probably open to error, but you can see it is collecting the West Wales figures and giving us an average. So we could get an average for West Wales like that. That's not great. We'd be better off creating a filter and saying, I just want West Wales. And now we have just West Wales, and we can see the average is 73.62. But if we want to compare that to East Wales and the valleys, we then have to go and select East Wales to get the average. And then let's hope we wrote down the first one. And then we have to go to the valleys and see if we can get an average here and write that down as well. So that's not very effective, but we do have all the information. The issue here is that it's not organized the way we want it. So what we can do is insert a pivot table. So you go to insert pivot table. It will ask you if you want your pivot table in the same sheet, but that's usually not a good idea. So let's have a new sheet, which you can rename. And there are three elements for building these. There are rows and columns and values. So the rows are, well, what would you like in your rows? And what I would like are the areas, because at the moment, the data is organized basically by local authority. But I would like it organized by area. So I'm going to take area and drop that into the rows. And you can see we've got a row for East Wales, a row for valleys, and a row for West Wales. I'm going to remove this total. Great. So it's set up the way I'd like it, just doesn't have any numbers in it. And then I'm going to take the numbers I'm interested in, which are the year ending March 2025. And I'm going to drag that, or you can just add it under values. And that says what numbers are going to be aggregated, because that's what we're doing essentially. We're aggregating. Instead of having lots of entries for East Wales, we've got all the East Wales entries. Now, it's added them all up. So it's added all the percentages for East Wales and come up with 528, which is not very helpful since these are percentages. So down here we can ask it to summarize not by adding everything up, but by an average. And so now I can see the average for East Wales is 75.5, the Valleys is 71.18, and for West Wales is 73.62. We can organize this. Okay, there's only 3, but we will work with bigger data sets in pivot tables. So at the moment it's sorted alphabetically by area, but we can sort it by the figures, average of year ending. And we can ask it to go ascending or descending. So we can see that the highest employment rate by region, or by area, is East Wales, then West Wales, and then the Valleys. And that is a pivot table. And that is everything for now.